Hi, readers. It's Lori. Welcome back to my channel, Books, Ink, and Paper, or welcome if this is your first time here. I met some lovely new people the other day at the Mardi Gras Readathon, so I have some new subscribers, and I've also subscribed to some of their channel. I will probably be featuring some of them soon because they're just great people. Today is a book chat. I really have been focusing mostly on work as well as prepping for the live sprints that we did for Mardi Gras Readathon the other day, plus just some other family stuff that's come up. And I'm just enjoying a couple of days off for the long weekend, which has been really lovely. And then this extreme cold came across the US. We are in a very cold situation here in the South, which is not always well received here because people don't know what to do with cold weather in the South. Examples, my sons both had their doors to their vehicles frozen shut this morning. They do know what to do. They're bright boys, but that's unusual. And my son who we live a little bit farther north than my kids that live in New Orleans, so it would be a little bit colder here than it was for them. His brakes were frozen as well, so he had to, pump them along, keep pressing on them so that they would warm up on the drive to work. Most people are not working today, to be quite honest. If you're in schools, you're not working today. If you're in the government offices, you're not working today. My partner is not working today. Any kind of a company that requires you to transport or to have people transporting to you, or of course, just having safety concerns of any kind, they're all closed. I actually just didn't have a lot of people on my calendar today. So I am, still having another day off essentially after the holiday day off. But we are expected to be 17 degrees tonight for their low. And we've had to run the water overnight, not run it, but drip the water overnight. And quite frankly, it, is a very real possibility that pipes could freeze tonight and all kinds of other chaotic situations could occur. I'm hoping that all of my children do not have to go anywhere tomorrow. In the meantime, we're drinking a lot of hot coffee and tea and hot cocoa, and a lot of my family are binge watching television and doing a number of other things. So there you go. That's the deal. So today is book chat day, and I have been recently thinking about the adaptations for books that I have not watched yet, and thinking about whether or not that's something that I want to commit to. One of them is the Grantchester series, which is on PBS. I have not started the series of reads, nor have I started that particular series on PBS. And it's been kind of nagging at me recently because that book is kind of on top of one of my stacks, and I see it a lot when I come in and out of the office here. So I was thinking about that one as a possibility for a new series choice for me, and maybe starting with book one and then kind of checking out the Grantchester setup on PBS. I am in need of a catch up on some series that I have already been watching, and one is about, I think, to be released again soon. So the catch up is Call the Midwife. I did read book one of Call the Midwife a number of years ago. I'm not interested in reading any more of the books because they were just okay. But I love that series, and I am awaiting the new season that I can watch. And I've been kind of rewatching some of the first couple of seasons just in anticipation of the new one. The Christmas episode is always dropped first here in the US. So I did watch the Christmas episode, but I know that there are some things that are changing, and I'm excited to get to the next season of Call the Midwife. If you aren't a fan of Call the Midwife, or you've never watched it, you can start from the beginning on Netflix. That is where it is now being shown. But if you have PBS Passport, as I do, then you can rewatch the current seasons that are not on Netflix, which is a blessing for sure. And the way that you get PBS Passport is that you become a donor of PBS. So we've been donors for this public broadcasting system for a long, long time. And now you're able to watch streaming shows as a result of that donation. They don't stay there always, though. So you do have to kind of be watching for when they come and go. And there's lots of them that are still available and some that are pulled at certain points. I will also say that my library has a lot of, on Canopy, has a lot of series on Canopy that are featured on PBS too. So if you're looking for something that you can't find on the Passport or somewhere else, if you have a library that allows you to watch a streaming service called Canopy, that's Canopy, Kanopy with a K, you can watch some PBS featured stuff there too, because our libraries are very gracious and generous about supporting PBS by getting videos and other things together for them. Another one that's coming out soon with a new season, and I am all caught up with this one, is All Creatures Great and Small, which is based on the books of James Herriot. I do have book one and maybe book two of that series. I have read book one. I will say, though, that the PBS series, I think, I don't know how much it deviates since I haven't caught up with the reading of those, but it is just delightful. I just love it so much. I love the actors that they picked for this series. I love the way that it is developed. I love the scenery, the locations that they chose, the content. It's one of my favorites. It's like a big warm hug, and I'm really looking forward to finding out what's happening with those characters in this new season. In other TV watching that's not related to books that I know of, we actually recently started watching The Bear. And I tell you this because you've probably heard of The Bear. It is very popular, I guess, right now. Also, it took home a lot of Emmys and Golden Globe Awards. And so that was kind of interesting to me. I will say that The Bear was difficult for me at first. It is very aggressive and a lot of fighting, and it was anxiety provoking for me. And I really did not think I was going to be able to make it through the first season for several episodes. I just disrupted. My whole kind of piece was in peril, trying to understand why these people were screaming at each other and fighting all the time. And yeah, and then it got a little bit easier. And then by the time the first season was over, I'm really ready to go on to the second. So we'll be starting the second season very soon, probably. And then the third season hasn't dropped yet. The other thing I want to make note of is when we watched these award shows and discovered that they were winning in the category of comedy. And I can't tell you that I think that this show is particularly comedic. I would love for all of you to weigh in on this because those of you who've seen The Bear, because I really don't understand. I don't see this as, I see this as a drama. I really, really do. There are very, very deep, difficult situations that are discussed. And while the end of the first season is a bit uplifting for sure, and maybe the second season is more comedic, I would say the first season was much more on the drama side. Also, the reason I like this show is because it's set in Chicago and I was raised outside of Chicago. So I love to be able to see the city again. And I was thinking about this the other night while I was watching it. I don't know that I could live in the city of Chicago again, not necessarily because of the weather, although that might be a factor. That's definitely a factor for my partner, but also because I don't think I could drive in the city of Chicago. I never had to drive when I lived there, so I don't have any experience of that. But I do remember how difficult it was for people to drive, and that was a long, long time ago. So the traffic in Chicago is much different now. When I do go to Chicago, I don't have to drive. I typically take public transportation the entire time I'm there. So I could see myself, I guess, living there not having to drive. But if I did have to drive, if I wasn't in the city itself, which likely I wouldn't be, oh, I just can't even. It makes me tense just watching people drive in the city sometimes. Let's talk about loose ends. One of them is I actually, the other day, was thinking about my video that I filmed last year that said you could ask me questions, any questions that you wanted to have answered, you could ask me within reason. Obviously, there are certain things I wouldn't answer based on just privacy issues. And so I had posted that video a long time ago, and I didn't get a lot of questions at that time. And I was kind of new back to YouTube, and so I get it. I just didn't probably have the following, or maybe nobody was curious about me in any way, which is also okay. But I thought I would bring this back up because somebody in the sprint event for the Mardi Gras Readathon kickoff the other night, one of my subscribers, and now she has her own channel, and that's Believe in your shelf. That's my friend Tammy. She said, "What happened to your ask you questions video? Ask me anything video." And yes, indeed, I dropped the ball, and I had already been thinking about that. I'm putting it out here today. If you'd like to ask me some questions, I will film a video where I answer those questions, and you can write them out here in the comments below. You can also post them on social media, but it's probably more likely that I will see them here. So, Ask Me Anything is part of this next evolution for me, which I'm hoping if you'll put your comments in within the next couple of weeks, hopefully before the end of the month, then I can start to film that video and get that out there for you. So, didn't want to forget that. Another loose end is the book you picked for my nonprofit nonfiction book of the quarter is The Art of Extreme Self-Care. I was really surprised by this because it looked like to me at first glance that The Light We Carry, the Michelle Obama book, was winning, and it was for a while, but in the end, it was 9-7. This is the one that got the 9 votes, and so The Art of Extreme Self-Care, 12 practical and inspiring ways to love yourself more. I'm really excited about this. I was happy with any of them. Yeah, so this is good. Cheryl Richardson and I are gonna get back to a relationship by connecting through this book. So that makes me happy. And then I did want to just check in because it's a book chat and tell you that I am currently reading The Violin Conspiracy by Brendan Slocum. I am not quite halfway through. This is really good. It's very compelling to read. I will say, those of you who have said that you loved it and gave it 5 stars, I can see where this could be a 5-star read for me. I love that it is about kind of a unique subject, so it doesn't follow kind of a trope or something that, I'm used to. It's really very unique, and I appreciate that too. And if I get to it, I might actually read Symphony of Secrets, which is also by Brendan Slocum, which I also got from my library. So there's a possibility that I could do that as well. And then Midnight at the Blackbird Cafe, I am listening to that, although I haven't gotten very far into it on audiobook. That I got that from my library as well. So a lot of my Mardi Gras readathon reads are coming from my library. And I'm also hauling a few things this month, so we won't talk about that. But this is the middle of the month today when I'm filming this, and I have already read 3 books this month. So I am definitely improving over my experience in December. Very happy about that. I also am progressing in my bullet journal. So, probably closer to the end of the month, I'll be showing you some of my spreads there. I've been watching tons of content on YouTube. Don't worry, I'm still watching your videos, that those of you that post your hauls and your what you're reading and all of the regular stuff, but I'm also reading or watching so many bullet journal, reading journal videos. I can't tell you how much I'm enjoying these, and I'm almost now feeling like I'm just overwhelmed and I got to stop and start actually delivering some content into my bullet journal. But watched New People to Me, which is incredible. I've subscribed to a couple of those. I've also watched Sarah Swan. She did a wrap up of her 2023 bullet journal, and then she did the other day a feature of her new one. I am not the best brush pen writer, but I am trying to be at peace with that. And I am, yeah, just enjoying the learning and the growth, and also trying not to cringe when I make huge mistakes that I have to cover up with washi tape or something else. So I'm noticing too that I thought I was good and I had, this whole plan, and now I'm like, oh, I want a page like that. I want a page like that. So it's not necessarily going to have the continuity that people who have done this before would have, but I don't care, because ultimately this is just for me, right? Like, I may show it to you, probably I will, but this is my bullet journal. So it's going to end up looking like I made it, and that's how it's meant to be. I did, though, want to say that there's a new store, and maybe it's just new to us. I mean, it's been around for a few months now. We've been going back and forth, but there's a shop that I'd never been to before. We had a Pier 1 Imports that went out of business. I think that whole company went out actually a while ago, and that we had this empty store in this little area that I live nearby. We really did not know what was going to end up in that store. all of a sudden one day we ended up with a store called Pop Shelf. And I know that this is nationwide because I've seen ads for Pop Shelf on YouTube. And Pop Shelf, I say it's kind of an elevated, more bougie Dollar General or Dollar Tree. Yeah, I would say that that's probably what it is. We did get some Christmas gifts from Pop Shelf for the little kids, nothing special after we had gotten them their other kind of, bigger, more high-end gifts. We ended up getting them some things there, some art supplies. My grandson got a deck of Coco Melon cards. They have, which I actually love, they have a lot of facial masks and eye masks, which I used in my vlog the other day. They have art supplies for kids as well as for adults. They have paper products and things for get for birthdays and different events. The reason we've been more than once is because the puppies needed a collar. And so we've been there to get collars twice now because the puppies have, they didn't like the first one that I got because it was a little harness and they didn't want to be constricted, I guess. And then also, they already were too big for that one. So we went back the other day and got them new collars. And these, I think, will last them until they are transported, which hopefully will be soon. We've had them much longer than we were anticipating that we would have them. Yeah, so they have new collars and they were like $1 or something. I don't know, not a whole lot of money. So it's not necessarily a dollar store, but a lot of the stuff that they have is around that price point. But they have little furniture too, and they have storage containers and they have towels and they have like they just have a lot of things in this store. And so I really like Pop Shelf. And if you haven't visited one in your area, I encourage you to do so. I don't know if they're new or just new to us, but I'm grateful that they're here. The other thing I wanted you to know is that I unhauled 14 books. There are still a few in my car, but I have been popping them into little free libraries, and I am feeling no remorse, no regret about rehoming those books. They are all nonfiction and they have been on my shelves for a long time. And I just realized that I was not going to probably read them. Some of them were gifted to me at different events or by different authors for me to read them and give a review, which I did. And I was happy to press them into someone else's hands. I have not yet started to look at purging fiction, but that's next on my list. I've started my bookish inventory. I've made a small dent there, but I am pleased with my progress so far. I have also started tracking my reading on the book reading tracker 2024 created by Katie at the Currently Reading Patreon part of the podcast. I don't know if you can get the reading tracker if you're just listening to the Currently Reading podcast, but if you're a patron of their channel, you can access that. And I like it. It's very robust. I haven't been tracking my reading in that way for a long, long time, but I'm open to it. And then I've also been using Storygraph instead of just using Goodreads. I still do go in and update Goodreads, but I'm really connected to Storygraph these days, and I'm getting used to it. It's a lot more questions. It will give me a lot more stats at the end of the year, which I can put in my bullet journal, which that makes me happy. I just saw somebody today who did that for her 2023 read. She put all of her information from Storygraph in there, and I can see that as handy. I think Storygraph is going to work for me. I wish it was its own app on my phone, and I don't think that that's possible yet, but so it's a website still. And so I'm kind of getting used to it and learning it. And I think there is a case to be made for both Goodreads and Storygraph, or one or the other, depending on what you're using them for. Storygraph is much more detailed and is much more likely to bring you some statistics that are useful to you. Goodreads, I think, is more for social kinds of conversations and just looking to see what other people are reading and what they've read and what they've rated it. And those kinds of things are easier, I would say, on Goodreads rather than on Storygraph. But I see that they both have a lot of merit. My partner and I listen to some podcasts when we travel, and we listened to Who Killed JFK season one. We completed that. That's a Rob Reiner, Soledad O'Brien production, and it was very good. And we both enjoyed it very, very much. And I've kind of always had a thing for JFK. So it was right up my street. Another one that we have been now listening to as a result of listening to Who Killed JFK is a podcast our son told us about. And that podcast is called Very Presidential, and it's hosted by Ashley Flowers. They're pretty short episodes. They're all about one president or another. The challenge we're having, so let me tell you some of the titles of these because they're pretty funny. So, George Washington, Almost Our First Zombie President. Ulysses S. Grant, The Butcher on the Battlefield, The Mouse in the House. Gerald Ford, Underrated or Over His Head. Richard Nixon, Tricky Dick. There are 16 episodes. Again, she's not currently recording any new ones, so that's important for you to know. Warren G. Harding, The Erotic Poet. We're not anywhere close to finishing this yet. I'm not sure I like any of our presidents anymore. I don't. I just don't. I think I was better not knowing some of the things about some of these people. Not even kidding. Obviously, knew a lot about the difficulties and challenges of Richard Nixon's administration, but yeah, there's some stuff I just didn't know. And it's not something that makes me pleased about the choice of these people for, kind of, I guess when you see a person, you think of a person who's sort of in power, but also is responsible for creating a government for the people, by the people, for the people, of the people. You would like to think that they were good people, right? You would like to think that they were honest, above board, conscientious people who were setting a good example. And yeah, I don't know, but not every one of them is as egregious as the other. And I don't want to spoil it and tell you which ones were egregious to me. But if you listen to Very Presidential and you want to have a conversation about it, connect with me because I am happy to do that as long as I've listened to that episode. But goodness sakes, it really makes you wonder. It really does. I mean, we've had some scandals in a lot of presidencies, not too long ago. We've had some scandals that are still kind of rearing their ugly heads, but we don't really know, do we? What happens behind people's closed doors. I guess that's why I like Very Presidential too, because it has some actual documentation or some interviews with people who would say that this happened or that happened. But again, do we know that that actually happened? Maybe not. But do we have some records of the fact that some of these things happened? Yes, we apparently do. I'm currently drinking, although not at the moment, or an Earl Grey decaf blend with a splash of almond milk and a little packet of stevia in the raw. That is my current hot drink of choice. I am participating in dry January, so I am not having any alcohol this month, which of course is fine. I am noticing that I am losing weight as a result of not drinking wine in the evenings now and again, because when I drink wine, I probably eat more, but also I don't get up and do as much probably. I mean, there's lots of reasons why that happens, I'm sure. I am definitely noticing a change in my weight, and that is not upsetting. So it may be a dry 2024. I mean, not necessarily the whole year probably, but yeah, I don't miss it for sure. And it saves me money not to be buying wine. So there's that too. There's a lot of good reasons for dry January or a dry year. Okay, I think that's it. I think that's the book chat. That was quite long compared to what I thought it was going to be. So hopefully not too long. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all of your participation in the Mardi Gras Readathon. For those of you who have participated, if you haven't, it's not too late. So go check it out on my channel. There's a video releasing that as well as a sprint that you can rewatch and do the sprints at your own leisure at home whenever you feel like it. If you have Any recommendations for me in terms of books, I appreciate those as well. If you have a topic you want me to cover in the next book chat, feel free to put that in the comments below too. And as always, happy reading. Bye.